показываете пример, как вы глубины, ответственности и уважения закона. А все остальное я готов, знаете, выслушать, как и товарищи, и обсуждать. Но при одном, я убежден в рамках социализма искать ответы. И социализм позволяет. Самый явный.
Moscow kept on denying that the Soviet occupation of Estonia was illegal. So on the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, more than 1 million Estonians, Latvians and Lithuanians created a 600-kilometer human chain.
It was something unimaginable. It was never seen before. We felt that this was something big.
Et igal rahval, ka väikesel, on vääramatu õigus olemasolule, on õigus rahvuslikule enesemääramisele.
It was an extraordinary show of mass defiance in the Baltic region of the Soviet Union, a human chain of protests that reached across the 3 Baltic republics, from Estonia in the north to Lithuania in the south.
It was very important feeling inside, and I remember that it made me shaky actually. It was such a great feeling to be there. That me, Ellen Liigus, I was important, I was part of the chain.
In the Soviet Union today, the Communist Party issued a stern warning to nationalist groups in the Baltic states, accusing them of whipping up hysteria in the region.
4 months later, Gorbachev was finally forced to admit that there were secret clauses within the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that led to the original Soviet invasion of Estonia. But this acknowledgement didn't change the fact that 50 years later, Estonia still remained occupied. So a group of Estonian activists developed a new tactic.
The idea was that Estonia had been illegally occupied in 1940, and Soviet passports had been imposed upon Estonians. This didn't mean that Estonians had been legally converted into Soviet citizens. It was simply political violence.
Therefore, Estonian citizenship still exists. So, since Estonian citizenship still exists, why don't we register all of the people who are Estonian citizens?
A campaign was begun to register people as citizens of the Republic of Estonia, rather than the USSR. In essence, denying the legitimacy of the Soviet occupation.
It started quite slowly because in the beginning we gave everybody a small ticket, that registration number and so on, that I am registered citizen of the Estonian Republic. They were called the tickets to the Siberia, and it was possible that they can be the tickets for Siberia, especially for those first 5,000 registered.
It was easy to start. The rest was a huge unknown.
But within months, 860,000 people, nearly every adult, had registered as Estonian citizens. This was an overwhelming referendum publicly expressing the desire for a truly independent nation. In February of 1990, the newly registered citizens voted for an alternative governing body called the Congress of Estonia. In March, the Congress of Estonia met for the first time. Moscow wasn't happy, but Gorbachev's new policies made it nearly impossible to prevent the Congress from meeting.
Eesti Vabariigi kodanike peakomitee nimel ma tervitan teid viimase poole sajandi Eesti elu tähtsündmuse. Tänasega algas meie vaba tuleviku esimene päev.
For 50 years, most Western nations had not the legality of the Soviet occupation under international law. Therefore, many representatives felt that the Congress of Estonia was in fact the legitimate governing body of the country. But in reality, the Congress of Estonia had no army, no police, no money, and no organized government.
There was a tempting idea that the Congress of Estonia rightfully could proclaim it supreme authority in the country. In other words, take the power. Then it could have provided a pretext for Gorbachev and Moscow to intervene and crush the movement.
So after much debate, the Congress of Estonia decided it would not declare any official authority. At least, not yet. But now, the hundreds of thousands of Russians living in Estonia saw the writing on the wall. They stood to lose the privileges that they had enjoyed for decades if Estonia moved towards independence. Interfront played into these fears and began organizing increasingly hostile protests.
I remember they had really big gatherings at public places, which were really scary to see that there are so many people in numbers who are against the independence. There was a feeling that they are a really strong threat.
Вы почему пришли на митинг?
Поддержать единство всего народа.
Защитить от кого?
От кого? Ну, правительство правильно разговаривало с русскими и правильно решали вопросы все. Эстонцы очень хитрые люди. Они с вами говорят очень хорошо, си-си-си-си, а поза глаза нож держат в грудь. Вот какие эстонцы.
In May of 1990, the Estonian Supreme Council made it illegal to fly the Soviet hammer and sickle flag. An angry Gorbachev publicly reprimanded Estonia for violating Soviet laws. The very next day, Interfront protesters marched on Toompea, the capital of Estonia. They shouted a list of demands, including the restoration of the Soviet flag and the resignation of the Supreme Council.
Me olime suhteliselt muretud, sest senised intrid igasu mindi laiali, lehvitati punalippe ja karjuti maha eestlasi ja kõik ja sellega asi lõppes.
But this demonstration was different. The hostility was escalating, and for all intents and purposes, it was starting to look like an attempted coup.
Потом там могло произойти столкновение, там элементарно могло произойти, потому что, во-первых, к людям толком никто не вышел, их требования никто не захотел слушать. Но потом нашлись горячие головы, которые стали эти ворота трясти там и прочее.
They were shouting, they were climbing into windows, they were dragging down the Estonian flag and so on.
Eventually the crowd broke through the gates and found themselves in the courtyard, ready to storm the building and take officials hostage. Word of the attack spread quickly, and Prime Minister Edgar Savisaar got on the radio to inform the public.
Ülemnõukogu ja Eesti Vabariigi valitsus kutsuvad rahvast valitsushoone kaitsele Toompeale. Interrinde ja töökollektiivi töönõukogu jõugud on Toompea lossi sisse piiranud ja seda rünnatakse. Kordan, Toompead rünnatakse.
Within minutes, thousands of Estonians flocked to defend Toompea. Interfront was now trapped within the courtyard with no way out except through the Estonian crowd outside.
But it was really a tense situation because everybody thought that now the first violence starts. If it goes violent, there might be a big problem.
It seemed that violence was inevitable. But the Estonians remained level-headed. Eventually, the crowd parted, allowing a column of Interfront members to run the gauntlet and retreat.
And in this situation, that the Estonian crowd kept very calm, very cool. For me, it's the real value, the real symbol of this Estonian type of making politics, making it calmly and without blood, but making it so that you will have your objectives, your aims to be fulfilled. It was a major really victory we had, that we didn't have any drop of blood. Any drop.
Suur aitäh teile! Me olime kindlad teis, et kui te tulete meile appi, te teete seda tõesti just nii, nagu te tegite, mõistusega, lauluga, südamega ja just nii me olemegi kõige tugevamad. Aitäh teile! Aitäh!
Things weren't going as peacefully in the other Baltic countries. Lithuanians were engaged in their own battle for independence. In January of '91, Soviet soldiers killed 14 people who were part of a demonstration at the TV tower. Hundreds more were wounded.
It seems that the Soviet leadership thought that dozens of victims will just be a good lesson. What they forgot was the role of the free media. The people who were slaughtered were recreated as symbols.
Less than a week later, 6 more people were killed in Riga, Latvia. Many thought Estonia was next. In preparation for an expected Soviet attack, Estonians put up barricades around the capital.
It was something we expected from the Soviets. It was a normal way of behavior to protect their power, to protect their occupation, to protect their ideologies. And we were prepared that they will repeat it in all Baltic countries.
The Soviet system was collapsing, and Gorbachev's policies were not working. Communist hardliners in Moscow felt that he had not gone far enough in suppressing the Baltic independence movements, and people in the Baltics were as anti-communist as ever. In fact, they were emboldened.
Gorbachev was desperately short of time. He was always late. Always the ideas came a little too late.
In a final attempt to hold the Soviet Union together, Gorbachev agreed to a massive restructuring in which the USSR would become a group of semi-independent republics sharing a common presidency and military. Communist hardliners were appalled. One day before the agreement was to be signed, they arrested Gorbachev, staged a coup, and seized the government in Moscow.